Hello, today I am talking about the book Life on the Bridge, Linking My World to Yours as an Autistic Therapist by Kaelynn Partlow. Kaelynn is well known for her social media pages where she posts insightful and helpful information, skits, and other things about autism, being autistic herself and a therapist at the school that she went to as a kid. She was also on the first season of the American version of Love on the Spectrum, which was my introduction to her. But as I've done with all the cast members from there, I end up following them online, and I follow a lot of autism-related pages online, but I think hers may be one of my favorites. This is the newer 2026 version of a book that she wrote. I will explain the difference between this and the 2024 version. So this version here was the original. I think it was self-published or maybe published through the school that she works with. Either way, it looked like this, but this is a newer edition. And there are some differences. This one has a new introduction by the director of Love on the Spectrum, and it also has a new chapter or two, so it is a little different from the original, but it is not a completely different book from the original, hence the same title. It's just a newer edition. While she was on Love on the Spectrum, this book is not a juicy behind-the-scenes look into her experience on there. She talks very little about that in this book, so if that's what you're looking for, you're not going to find that here. This book is a lot more clinical, and it's basically a lot of information and advice for autistic people or those who know autistic people. This book isn't really just for caregivers of autistic children. The advice can be given in mind for children, but it can also be for adults, really any age. And it can also be for you yourself as the reader if you're looking for advice for yourself, or someone else you know in your life. Doesn't have to be a child. It could be another family member. I think the advice applies to everyone. Kaelynn has dedicated her life to autism advocacy and education, and I respect that. With this book, she's not trying to fix or change who autistic people are, but rather meet them where they're at and work with them from there, hence the word bridge in the title. A lot of this book is about understanding yourself with the autistic person in your life, and then working with them based on their needs. I think that Kaelynn has a great understanding of autism and the fact that autism is a spectrum and that what works for one person may not work for another. I think she stresses the importance of understanding the individual needs of yourself or whoever you're helping. I think she is great at understanding and explaining how her brain works. In this book, she emphasizes the fact that her words are tips, not rules, because again, what works for one person may not work for another. With her understanding of the variety of the spectrum, she better explains the current diagnostic level modifiers and what they mean, because she feels like the official definitions are a bit vague. So she gives many examples of what that can look like, of what it can look like for each level. Some of the topics she goes over are, in fact, I'll say most if not all of them, what autism is and what it isn't, where she fits in on the spectrum and her own experiences. So it's not really an autobiography or a memoir, but she does give many of her own experiences, and I think when she does, it's the appropriate time. She tells a lot of her own stories, but also talks about other people that she has known. And I think there are good analogies too that are explained well, so they're easy to understand. She also talks about setting goals for autistic people and how she believes that should be done, different ways of communicating effectively with autistic people. She goes over many different ways to try communicating, not just one. She doesn't really say something and then says, this is the only way to do it, this is the only way that's possible. I think that she's good at thinking things through from every angle and really considering different possibilities. She goes over how to cope with meltdowns and change, stimming, perseveration. That one was especially interesting for me to learn about, and I'm glad that now I have a name to put to that experience. Scripting, sensory needs, autistic people understanding different perspectives, special interests, definitely my favorite aspect of autism to discuss. Eye contact, her definition of the difference between awareness and acceptance, masking, advice for building independence and adulting, accommodations, how to help with psychological rigidity, advice for finding a therapist, her thoughts on ABA therapy, which I don't really know much about, so I think that she helped me learn a bit more about that, and getting involved in autism advocacy. She really goes over a lot. Overall, it's just, like I basically said, about how to help yourself as an autistic person or the autistic person in your life, or maybe both. There are also some helpful, simple illustrations throughout the book. That was a nice touch. I don't know if those were in the original edition. I think she has a lot of good advice in here. I don't think she rambles for too long about anything. The book is less than 250 pages, but she still goes over so much. I think there's so much valuable information in here. I think the book is quite well written. I think the tone is conversational and humorous, not dry or boring at all, even when she's talking about the medical, clinical stuff. But she is absolutely still serious, especially when she needs to be. I think that her attitude is realistic and practical, as well as honest, but she is still hopeful and supportive. As I said, I think this can be useful for anyone with autism in their life. So not just parents, but also teachers, therapists, or just a regular person as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I learned a lot from it, and I think this will be a good book to have and look back at. If there's anything specific I want to go back to. So this was really enjoyable to read. This is definitely 5 stars for me. I think she goes over a lot of good, important things, and I think she is very considerate. I suppose that is all I have to say. If you've read this book or have any opinions on anything, then please let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.